Welcome aboard, folks. I'm Stephen Malkowich, your captain on this adventure called Ship of Fools. I'm a fool. Lucky for you, I'm not sailing solo. Join me and a boatload of people, all just trying to make sense of this crazy world. It's a fabulous mess, and you're invited. Welcome to Ship of Fools, where wit meets wisdom. I would like to welcome our resident political pundit, Dr. Aaron Hoffman from Simon Fraser University. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
I have a title, Trump, Iran, and the Price of Chaos. I'm probably behind the times here now, because every minute of the day, it appears that something else is happening with the good old United States of America. The last time we talked, I can't even remember what we talked about. And I know it was Trump.
Yes.
But I can't recall, because I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. I don't believe I do. But every time I turn the news on or I read something, I go, that can't be right. That can't be right. But now we have a war on our hands. Is it really? Can you call it a war? Can you call that a war? Don't you have to, in order for the United States of America to declare war? Now, I could be wrong on this. I stand to be corrected. But is that not something that has to go through Congress?
It requires I would call it a war. In order for a declaration of war to be issued, we need a congressional approval of that. There is an exception in U.S. law, though, that recognizes the necessity and the right of the president to commit forces overseas without prior congressional approval. It's called the War Powers Act. And the War Powers Act says effectively that if and when the president needs to do something quickly, right, that would happen too quickly for Congress to kind of weigh in, that there is a window of 60 days that the operation can take place, the military operation can take place, before the president has to report to Congress on what he is doing. And there's actually a provision that makes it possible for the president to extend that timeline for 30 days. So I think in practice, there's a 90-day window. There's a 90-day window for the president to use force abroad without explicit congressional approval.
So we're 30 days into that now.
That's right.
Okay, so we're 30 days into that. So we probably got, at minimum, probably 2 more months of this, unless something else changes.
Yeah, it's really hard to say how much more we have of this. I think, we're speaking here, it's April 2nd,
yeah.
And last night the president made a nationally televised speech in which he finally came in front of the American people to try to explain what it was that the United States is doing in Iran. And, in that speech, he indicated that he thought that hostilities would continue for 2 to 3 more weeks. The big question is, how does the United States extricate itself from this? And so far, there's no obvious way. So 2 to 3 weeks, a month, I don't know. It's really hard to...
Oil get to $200 a barrel, and they're out in the streets with pitchforks.
Yeah, and it's a race. There's a bit of a race to this to see who, the United States, the Israelis, the Iranians, can tolerate the most punishment before they say enough.
That speech or statement that he made last night, I was trying to understand it, and I couldn't make any sense of what he was saying, and just this, and once again in the news, it's almost like he purposely wants to change the discussion when things start to get a little tight. So he fires, Pam Bondi.
Yeah.
I have been around for a while, as you have, but I have not seen anybody that can change direction and course. And the people, is there anyone around him that's sane, that's keeping this thing Please help me.
Yeah. Well,
Please,
let me
please.
start with that. I think I am in agreement with you that the speech and the firing of Bondi make it look like he's desperately trying to get control of a situation that he's lost control of with respect to the military action in Iran. And I think both the speech and the firing of Bondi make him look weak, actually, to the outside world. The firing of Bondi, this may be the wrong interpretation, but it is very hard to dismiss the idea that he did it basically to try to change the subject a little bit. He went in front of the American people, made a statement that he probably should have made weeks ago, and in the immediate reaction was that markets got all jittery again. Price of oil increased again by 7 or 10%. Stock market declined. So the speech was a bomb in economic terms. And he's just looking for anything to try to reassert some control and make it look like he's doing what he wants to be doing and that he's in control. And Bondi seems like an easy way to try to change the narrative a bit. So I also had a little bit of trouble understanding the speech as well. I sat there trying to think, like, why is he doing this? What's going on? My take is that he did it to try to finally focus people's attention on an argument about going to war in Iran that he thought that people might accept, because he was pretty focused on the nuclear material that they have, even though he's contradicted himself about the importance of that half a dozen times since the war started. But that to me was the main idea, which to remind people that the war had only gone on for 30 or 32 days. It wasn't very long. That the U.S. is doing really, really well. Better than any military has ever done in the history of human military efforts ever. Yes, ever. And meting out more punishment than any adversary has ever experienced. I think that those kinds of statements don't really. Maybe it helps keep the people who will really support him together. But if I am in Iran, if I'm one of the remaining members of the Iranian elite that's leading the country, I look at that and I see a president that's stuck, that's exuding weakness, and it doesn't make me think that I would want to negotiate with this guy anymore, or at all, really, seriously, unless they come up with some kind of serious concession that would really change the dynamic in some important way.
So what happens? This is something that came to me last night when I was and listening to Macron, and there's nothing that stops NATO or on some sort of alliance, whatever you want to call it, because he's shitting all over NATO now.
Yeah.
But what's stopping France, Great Britain, Germany from trying to cut a deal with Iran themselves?
Well, that's a great question, and I would say that there's already been meetings going on in Europe amongst European powers, exactly the ones that you mentioned, that appear to be discussing how to deal with the Strait of Hormuz once the hostilities are over. So I think that they are thinking exactly the way you are, which is that this is the U.S.'s and Iran and Israel's war. And once they're done making a hash of things, the Europeans are going to try to find some sane way of dealing with the problem and securing their own supply of oil out of the strait. It seems very clear from statements that the Iranians are making, and of course they may be lying, but the Iranians seem to be saying that the Strait of Hormuz will be closed to you, meaning the United States, but that leaves everybody else open for business, as far as I can tell.
And there's so many things, there's so many facets to this whole thing playing out that, the U.S. dollar being the reserve currency of the world, and at the petrodollar. That's what it is. Everything's tied to the U.S. dollar, the price of oil. So I just, I never even thought of this, and because I read too much, I'm reading. I think it was an article in the Wall Street Journal about how this is such a tremendous burden on countries like Japan and South Korea with their currency, trying to buy oil.
Yeah.
And what is the end game here? The population of the world, the majority of us are sane. Right? Are we not? We are.
I think so.
I think we are.
Yeah.
I think we are because we have order most of the time.
Yes.
We have police. We understand that, what's right and what's wrong. But what is the end game with this? I guess there was was there an expectation that Iran would just fold like a cheap suit and be gone, and you got almost 100 million people that live in that country. Like it's not that's a healthy population. There's a very healthy population. They have obviously that you have not hit everything, because they're still lobbing shit over at Israel, and they're lobbing shit everywhere. And the last thing you want them to start doing is being like Russia is. Like the Russians just like, well, oops, we missed. Sorry, we didn't think that was I don't know,
right.
that might be a nuclear power, but I don't know.
Right.
We just I think I do think that if I was in the elite in Iran, I'd be looking at this as, okay, now it's your turn. Let's see what you're going to do, and a stare down.
Yeah,
I mean that.
That's right.
I really do
That's
mean that.
That's exactly what's going on.
I've wondered for a while too. Is this going to be a catalyst for something wider to happen?
Lots of questions there. I mean, I basically think that your analysis is spot on. If you think things are bad in Japan and South Korea, Bangladesh and Pakistan are really suffering. They've both instituted basically wartime energy measures, restricting energy. I think I read that Bangladesh has been parts of it 22-hour-a-day blackouts because there's no power. In Pakistan, they've told people to stay home one day a week to try to conserve energy. The high gas prices that we're experiencing here in Canada and also in the United States are basically nothing compared to what's going on in Asia. The chip production in South Korea is being affected. There are all sorts of other kinds of invisible or hard to see consequences from this that are going to have ripple effects for us here in Canada. Things like ammonium production is being made more expensive. So ammonia is
fertilizer.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's going to affect planting.
Yeah.
And that's going to affect farming. And there's all sorts of intermediate goods that come out of petroleum that even if we are not using Strait of Hormuz oil directly, comes to us in all sorts of ways because of the interconnectedness of the international economy. So this is a major economic hit to the world. And you asked the question, like, what's the end goal here? And honestly, I think that is what everybody's asking. I don't really see a really clear answer from the administration. I think that they believed that, as you said, Iran was going to fold like a cheap suit. I think they saw two things. Number one, they saw that how easy it was to pick Maduro out of his military base in Venezuela. That was just so easy. And they also saw the significant protests in Iran. That Iran had to kind of brutally repress, 30,000 people dead. Hard to know what the numbers are. I mean, they know, but clearly brutal.
Yeah.
And they looked at that and they said, this country's ripe for the picking. And so even though Trump's own Joint Chiefs of Staff, his own military leaders, not the woke ones, right, that he fired, but the ones that he promoted, were saying to him, slow down. This is not going to be Venezuela. This is a whole nother problem. And he got angry. His response was to get angry with them. He and to reject their advice. So it's not clear at all what I think that they wanted regime change, real regime change, not just shuffling the decks on the Titanic, moving people around in the old regime into new positions, which is what they're doing. And they're not getting it. And that means that this is going to be a mess and something that's going to be very hard to end.
There's a couple of things too here. Okay, so Israel now is basically, it's a wartime economy. It's perpetual wartime economy now. It has to be. The other thing that wouldn't shock me is Trump just picking up all his toys and leaving. And if he does, then that's, I don't know what, I can throw a couple of F-bombs in this here and say we're royally, and I haven't even brought up Cuba yet. Like I haven't even talked about Cuba. I haven't even talked about what, like 10 million people that they have nothing.
No. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They have absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And I've been to Cuba and they had nothing when I was in Cuba. Now they have less than nothing. Yeah. So it's not laughing. We're not laughing here. This is serious. This is really serious stuff. This is a crisis. Everyone's talking about it. And it doesn't seem that there's any urgency to settle it from the population of the United States of America. I'll say that. And maybe it's because I understand that his political opponents, he's always going to frame them however they are, but there has to come a point where the population, the normal folk in the United States have to step up and say, okay, enough is enough. We can't tolerate this anymore. And is that, maybe I'm answering my own question when I say this, is that $200 a barrel oil? I don't know. Like he continues to say, well, this is good for America. This is good. Well, it's good for who in America?
Yeah.
The oligarchs or whoever else that's controlling. It's good for Russia.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, good for Alberta.
Yeah, it's great for Alberta. It's great.
Yes.
it's absolutely great for Alberta.
Right. In the short term.
In the short term, yes. And we have, and it's just a matter of time, and it's already starting to happen where you're seeing, we've had inflation, things rise up, and they continue to. Where's the, and I can't imagine, like you brought up Japan, you brought up South Korea. What are they? The world relies on petroleum for so much.
Yep.
We do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's so many. So I can't believe that you would, because I was going, okay, well, this is, in my little sick, demented way, I was trying to figure out, okay, he's using this as a way to put pressure on Russia. I thought that a while ago.
Right.
And I went, no, he's not. So help me with this. Help me understand what the ultimate goal here is to wreck the economy. Because right now, I don't imagine that even Saudi Arabia can't be on side with this.
Hard to say. I mean, there have been some reports that the Saudis are saying to him, basically finish the job, because they are furious. They are furious at having been targeted by Iran for this. But I would, and I think, and probably, with the price of oil being high, that probably helps them in the short term a bit. So they can probably withstand this a little bit longer than some others. But I don't see this as a good medium to long term thing for them, because basically the problem is that you started off this question to me about, well, what happens if Trump just picks up his toys and goes home? And I agree with you that that's a possibility, that he just says, we're done. We won biglier than anyone else have won. And no one can believe how well we won. But the problem is that it's not his game to end. If you're in Iran and you have been subject now, this is now the second attack that they have suffered, major attack. This is now much longer than the first one in June, right? In 6 months from the same two countries. What is stopping them from deciding in 6 months from the day that this thing ends to do it again? What is the guarantee that the United States and Israel are offering Iran to say, change your ways and we will change ours? And not only will we change our ways, but you can take those changes to the bank. I don't see it. So if I'm Iran, I think that there's a decent chance that if the Americans pick their toys up and come home, they continue to choke the Strait of Hormuz and continue to punish the Americans until they make some sort of painful concession. And again, I don't even know what that painful concession would be, because it has to be, if we assume that the regime is trying to survive, which I think is a reasonable assumption, what can the Americans do to help them guarantee their survival? That's not an obvious outcome to me. So I think this could easily last longer than the Americans wanted to, even if they say, we're done, we're taking all of our military home and we're out. They've really opened up a can of worms that they can't control where all the worms are going.
Do you ever see, like, and this is a question because I know you're American. I assume you're American.
I am. Yeah.
I can't make those assumptions.
No,
I can ask that of you and me when I do that stuff. But is there ever, there has never been in the history of the United States that I can recall where the military has said, no, we're not going to do that. We did. And you got solemn there when I bring that up, where they go, this is stupid. And we're in a different time. We've been in a different time for a long time now, where things they're just because you say it's so doesn't mean it's so. And I'm not suggesting that there's going to be an insurrection from the military, but the people with the brains at the Pentagon have to be looking at this and going, okay, where's this going to end? Where is this going? How many lives lost are enough?
Yeah,
and I, we have I can bring this back to Canada here. We have a prime minister who is being pragmatic now, which is not a bad thing.
No.
Okay,
yeah. I'm
going to go to China.
Yeah,
I have to deal with what is. I can't deal with what I prefer it to be. It is what it is.
That's right.
And in the United States of America is the big. It's always had the big stick, but I can't you want to be this big player. But at the same time, if he steps back, then you're going to see, I'd say, I could call it a coalition of the willing, once again, of countries that are willing to somehow bring Iran back into the fold, and maybe Russia too. I don't know, because that shit's still going on. That war's still going on.
Right.
We've forgotten about that.
Right.
And we're really not talking a lot about Israel so much either. We're talking about the United States and Iran fighting. And if I want to dig deep enough here, I'm going to say, well, Mr. Netanyahu convinced Mr. Trump that this was the thing that we had to do. And now that we've done it, now, excuse me, Israel sure wants to keep the pedal to the metal, I believe, and push them back as far as they possibly can in Lebanon, the West Bank, right. The whole, and just, let's just clean this all up. And like you said, the Saudis, the same thing, finish the job because they hate Iran, or what are they? I always get confused, the Sunni and the Shia. I know.
The Shia are Iran.
Okay.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. No, it's
a dumb white guy.
No, it's confusing. It's confusing.
That's like, okay, you're Catholic, or you Greek Orthodox? What are you? Okay, kind of thing. But and then you also have, like, how these questions pop into my head when we're talking. How do you get insurance on a tanker?
Yeah. Right now you don't.
You don't.
Right now you don't. But the insurance companies are refusing to insure those tankers that are going through the Strait of Hormuz. And so everyone is like, no, thank you. So, Trump is like, everyone kind of, grow a pair and start pulling oil out, and they're like, are you kidding me? So, I could imagine, I was thinking about this, I could imagine the United States becoming an insurance company for these shipping companies.
Backstopping it.
Right. And providing that. Now would have to get through the Congress.
Yeah.
But that's possible. But honestly, it's even too much risk for the United States right now, because the material that the Iranians need to destroy those tankers is nothing. The U.S. will not be able to prevent guys on jet skis with small bombs attacking them and destroying these tankers. And so even if we knock out all of Iran's ballistic missile capability, we will not prevent them from making it hellish to get through the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, we have such a short attention span. And maybe we're discussing this because I think we're two individuals, obviously, that give a shit, care about the geopolitical situation and our fellow human beings. But how long did it take? We're still not talking about Gaza now. Gaza's been leveled.
Yep.
Right? Completely leveled.
Yep.
It took quite a while.
Yep.
For that operation to, first of all, materialize, and then I don't even know what is happening there now. I don't think it's good.
No.
It's all been leveled. It's going to be, at some time, it's going to be rebuilt. I don't know what. I think that whole area is going to, and then you start talking about Lebanon, the West Bank, and I don't know how far Israel's pushed into Lebanon now. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
So we're looking at this and going, okay, until and I think we've been rather fortunate here in North America in that we haven't been, nothing aside from the economics of it, we haven't been hit with anything. And I'll speak from a terrorist perspective. Just call it what it is. We have not been hit.
No.
We haven't. And I don't know if that is because we're so damn good at rooting that out, or we've just got shithouse luck, or there's not necessarily the will to do it. No. I mean that when I say that, because I don't want to, like you said, it's not real hard to pull that shit off.
No.
A jet ski, whatever it is, to blow up a tanker, to do whatever you want to do. And we have, there's some serious shit coming up. We've got the World Cup of Soccer going. There's a bunch of things that are happening. There's got to be, and then you throw in, and I, every time when I talk, I know I got almost verbal diarrhea here, but you got, okay, they're not paying government workers, some certain government workers. Right. Well, who would go to work and not be paid?
Right.
And is he still putting ICE agents in the airport?
Yes.
See, look at you go, yeah, he's done that.
Yeah.
And he's going to print money with his name on it with that Sharpie and his picture.
Yes.
And I guess is that not against the law? We never knew. It's like Sam Harris says, he broke his brain because he didn't think that these things were against the law until somebody does them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can just go ahead and do that. Yeah. Why not? Let's remove the letter C from the alphabet today. You're not allowed to say anything with C in it today.
Okay.
Hey, I'm going to buy shoes for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I know I just threw a shit there.
Yeah, I know.
I've tried. I want to understand.
Well, it is like drinking from the fire hose in American politics, and figuring out what he can and what he can't do, and is very difficult. In some cases, figuring out why he's doing it is very difficult. I think it's too easy. I think it's often too easy to write him off as a lunatic or an idiot. I don't think he is either of those things exactly. I think he's a megalomaniac. I think that his, the only thing that at the end of the day he really, really cares about is himself. and probably his close family. But promoting himself has always been kind of the most important goal to him. But I also think that he has a real shrewdness to him that often works. The stuff that he's done with challenging the Europeans and Canada in terms of their contributions to NATO. I think that he's behaving dangerously with respect to the NATO alliance, but the fact is that presidents way before him have been trying to get Europe and Canada to contribute more to the alliance, and we're really not making a lot of progress. And Trump has made a lot of progress on that.
Yes.
So now, at what cost? I think the bill may be coming due later on. I think that the fact that the alliance has not come to U.S. aid at this point is partially an effort by them to say, well, you wanted to fight this by yourself, so go ahead. The Brits offered to help, and Trump said, no, you're just trying to jump on the bandwagon. We don't need you. Basically, stay at home. And so Keir Starmer said, okay. And then when things got bad, when he started doing his little tantrum, where are you guys? Where are you guys? That wasn't a good look for him. So, long story short, he's gotten himself into a pickle that he doesn't know how to get himself out of. A lot of times he has outs, and right now he doesn't. And so it's really hard to figure out exactly how he manages this circumstance, which is really one of his own making.
And you have China sitting there watching.
Yeah.
That's all they just watch.
That's right.
Just sit and watch.
That's right.
And see
That's
what happens here. And I want to believe this, and maybe you can help me with this one here. Little Marco, he doesn't say much.
No.
You can tell by his facial expressions when he's sitting there that he's either he's thinking, or he's planning, or maybe his plan is to be the president of the United States. Who knows?
Yeah.
But he's not saying much.
No.
He's not saying much.
And neither is Vance right now.
Yeah, they're very quiet.
That's right.
And Rubio was a hawk when it came to Cuba, obviously.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. He's not saying very much.
No.
He's keeping, and when they go around the table, when he has those meetings where everybody says, blows sunshine up his ass and says how great he is.
Yeah.
Rubio doesn't say much.
Yeah.
He's the only one that doesn't say much, say how great the president of the United States is. You alluded to this. You said, yes, he did bring, we're at, I think I read this morning that Canada is approaching 2% of GDP.
Yes.
On defense.
That's right.
Which we haven't been for like 60 years or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
been a while. Yeah.
It's been a while. Which is our own doing. But there are certain things that he's made the rest of the world, and Canada especially, wake up to. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. But I want to understand, or maybe our listeners or people that listen or watch this, okay, if he's being shrewd, what's the shrewdness here? What is the potential end to this that is I'll say, not maniacal and somewhat fiscally responsible? I don't see it. I just do not see it.
No, I think this was a mistake. I think this is a categorical mistake. I just don't see the end of it. I mean, the fact is that everything that he said last night, we're bombing them bigly, we're destroying all this, we're destroying all that. That's actually
is
true.
Bigly even a word?
No. He's right though. The U.S. is laying waste, and Israel are laying waste to Iran. They have the Iranian Navy is sitting at the bottom of the sea, and there's been tremendous damage to the infrastructure of the country and to military sites. And the other day they bombed this important scientific research center, the Pasteur Center, was a medical center, and they're now threatening to go after parts of Iran's energy infrastructure. So militarily, the U.S. and Israel are doing just fine. They're really, they can go on doing this for a long time. But the problem is that they're not achieving, at least for the United States. The United States is not getting closer to any kind of goal that it has. It's not gotten closer to acquiring, to removing the enriched uranium that the Iranians have. It's not gotten closer at this point to serious regime change. It's not gotten closer to forcing the Strait of Hormuz open. So, you can win all the battles that you want and lose the war, and that's what's happening.
And when they knocked the Ayatollah out,
Yeah.
he had decreed down to, and obviously I trust the reports that he said each military unit they're independent of each other. You can do what you feel is right.
Right.
Meaning that there's no real top down.
Right.
So you can say, okay, well, you know what? I've got this. I'm responsible for this. We're going to just huck a bunch over at the UAE or whoever. We're going to do what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And there's no top down. So if you think you're going to go after the top, it doesn't matter. You're going to have. It's almost like guerrilla warfare in the Middle East with various units of the military in Iran. I'm not saying they're rogue.
Right.
These guys aren't.
No, they're making independent decisions.
That's correct.
Yes.
And to fight an enemy like that is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You don't have this cohesive thing. I mean that's got to be really hard. And there comes a time too where, the Iron Dome runs out of missiles that can intercept.
That's right.
Like there's only so much that you can make.
That's right. Much that you make them much more slowly than you can make the missiles and the drones that can be used to attack vulnerable spots.
I've said this, man. I'm Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So when he says to the Ukrainians, well, you guys are great with the drones. We need you now.
Yeah.
I would you know what I mean? But it wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how can we help?
Right.
And I don't know what now Israel is all of a sudden on side with Ukraine, which they that never. There's a lot of Ukrainian Jews.
Yes,
I know about that.
Yeah.
But that drove me crazy too, because I would talk to my Jewish friends who would say, "Well, it's not really our business." Yeah, it is your business. The leader of that country is Jewish.
Right.
That is your business.
Yeah.
I look at this whole situation and try to understand it and say, okay, well, are we going to see whatever it translates to? Because I know it's 4.5 times, but we're at $2.15 or $2.20 a liter. And that's, we're talking here in the lower mainland of BC.
Right.
And one thing you don't notice either is the government does not say, well, we're going to take away the tax.
Right.
They don't say that shit because we're running a $13.5 billion deficit in this province too. The only people that are making any money off of this, I say the oil companies, but the guys that are making the Sharpies for Donald Trump must be making a shit ton of money. He was bragging the other day. Did you see that?
Yes.
Did you actually see that? He's, they used to do $1,000 pens and give them away. Now I just get these Sharpies, and he's got thousands of them because everything he does is by executive order. So he's got to sign.
Yeah. No, I know. You raised a second ago. You asked them kind of twice. About is there anyone in the administration that has that that's not Trump that has a kind of a solid grounding and a good idea about what to do. And you asked about Rubio, and I think that Rubio is one of the big mysteries in this administration to me. He's allegedly the Secretary of State, but he's not doing any of those Secretary of State like things that you would imagine, right? So the most of those international negotiations, the important ones anyway, have been offloaded to this guy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. Yeah. And so Rubio was also the national security advisor, and I'm guessing that what's really happening is that Rubio is the national security advisor, and he holds the title of Secretary of State, and will jump into that role when it's necessary or when it's useful. But he's primarily working as the national security advisor. So it seems like Rubio is most likely the one who was really pushing for some of the stuff that's been happening in Latin America, the decapitation in Venezuela and this blockade of Cuba. Exactly what his role is in this particular war is very hard to say, because it's just, as you said, he's quiet on so many fronts. He's quiet in those meetings that are publicized, but he's also pretty quiet in the news media. So it's hard to get a feeling for exactly what he's doing. I don't believe, though, that Pete Hegseth is really pulling the strings in the Pentagon.
I hope you're right.
Other than, I hope I'm right too. But
you're right.
But I think it's more Rubio helping to kind of make those big strategic choices, and also, let's never forget that the ultimate decider in the Trump administration is always Donald Trump. Nobody thinks that anybody knows more about anything that has to happen in the world than the president himself. And sometimes his instincts are okay, or at least not terrible. And this time it seems like his instinct really led him astray. He doesn't really, there's no real evidence that he listens to people seriously who disagree with him. It's not clear that he has people that he respects in terms of their expertise that could say to him, okay, slow down on this, or do it differently. So
you don't believe there's any puppet master behind the scenes?
No, I really don't.
Do you believe that there are actually discussions going on between the United States and Iran, maybe through an intermediary or some sort, or something? Do you believe that that's happening?
I believe everything that I've seen suggests that there may be some talks, but they're not very serious on the Iranian side. The Iranians are not willing at this point to make any significant concessions, and they don't think that they're required to do so, because the situation, despite getting pummeled by Israeli air and U.S. air attacks, is not enough to make them say mercy. So the real urgency to cut a deal is on the U.S. side. Mm-hmm. And so far, the U.S. hasn't signaled a willingness to make any painful concessions.
Do you ever think they'll run out of munitions?
The Americans?
Yeah.
No.
Like, did he just
not really. They might run out of iron, missiles, basically anti-ballistic missile, material that they might run out of, but run out of serious weapons to conduct. I mean, remember, the U.S. fought 2 wars at the same time. In the Middle East, in the Middle East and in Afghanistan and Iraq for years, for more than a decade. That is unbelievable. Overseas, fighting wars overseas is hard for anyone, and they did it with 2 wars. And so, no, I don't think that there's any real serious problem that the U.S. is going to run out of.
The one thing that this woke me up to was how many military bases the United States had in the Middle East. I learned about countries I knew nothing about, and because, well, the Iranians obviously knew where all these things were. Yeah, because they were lobbing. Why were they hiring lobbing one over there?
That's right.
Well, that's because they're, but it made me realize how huge the American military presence is.
Yes.
In that area.
That's right.
It really is,
and it's a tremendous advantage.
Sure is.
Yeah, it's a tremendous.
But they're not I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I was I think I was watching one of the, when I had one of my YouTube sessions, and they were talking to a retired general in the U.S. military, and he was talking about how he had gone over to China and they had gamed out a situation like what was happening. And how
the Chinese had,
yeah, okay. And how this would all play out. And he said, shockingly, they were quite correct,
right,
in the way they had gamed it out.
Right.
So they're the message to me was they're quite content to sit back and watch this sort of play out and see what happens. They have, the Chinese don't have a huge military presence in the Middle East. They are in this. Maybe you can help me with this. There is a little country there that I found out I didn't know the name of. I'm going to test you here. there's a little country in the Middle East that is real close to the Strait of Hormuz. That is actually has no oil or anything, but there's a bunch of military bases there.
Well, there's no oil in southern Yemen.
This is, but I'd never heard this country's name before, and maybe
I study international politics, but I am proudly one of the least geographically aware people on the earth. Yes,
I pride myself on geography.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of this country, and it's just a little tiny sliver. And the Americans are there, the Chinese are there. I don't think the only country that's not there is Russia. Okay. They used to be there, but this country makes its money from the fees that they get associated with the military bases that are there.
Okay.
And I was just shocked. And the Chinese are like, the Chinese military base is really close to the American one, and they're always spying on each other and shit like that. And we have to put. Tricia, remind me of this. We have to put that in the notes somewhere, because it's going to drive me crazy. What's that?
Oh, Djibouti.
Djibouti? Okay. Djibouti. Okay, there you go.
Okay. I did not know that there was presence there. Yeah.
We'll have to check that. But the thing is that I'm, if anything from this conflict, I'm learning something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I know it's not a good thing, but a little bit about the geography, but and then we have now, and my mind's getting ahead here, and he just signed an executive order. When I say he, President Trump, Donald Trump signed another executive. Did he outlaw mail-in ballots?
He has said that the executive order means that mail-in ballots must follow a particular structure. They have to have, the envelopes have to have these codes on them that the federal government prints. And so he hasn't exactly outlawed mail-in ballots, but he's imposed restrictions on it that will bring it under the control of
the federal government,
yes,
as opposed to the state governments,
yes,
which it usually is.
Yes, the elections in the United States are run state by state. That's a constitutional matter.
Now I have another question for you, because as we talk, there's more questions that continue to come in. I want to understand them. How do you get to the Supreme Court of the United States so quickly? Like, because he seems to live there.
Right.
And when I say that there's everything, every week there seems to be something that's being brought to the Supreme Court level. Isn't there a process that you go through? I want some clarifications on this, because I know in Canada, to get the Supreme Court of Canada, it takes a long time.
Right. Well, the executive branch, and I would assume the Congress as well, the legislative branch, have an advantage in terms of being able to get to the Supreme Court. And primarily, what's happened is that the Trump administration has made numerous what are called emergency applications to the court. So what would happen is they would lose a case at the lower level, and they would immediately appeal to the Supreme Court, demanding relief under an emergency process. And so much of last year, actually, the Supreme Court was making decisions on these emergency applications, what are the so-called shadow docket. So these are cases that are not going through the normal process for adjudication as they would normally. And but those orders were temporary. So, for example, just was it yesterday, or the day before? It must have been the day before. There was this case that was heard about so-called birthright citizenship. So, in the United States, right, if you're born in the United States, doesn't matter if your parents are citizens or not, you are a citizen. That has been the law of the land, and it appears that the language of the 14th Amendment makes that so. And in fact, the Supreme Court has held that that's the case in at least one other case before it. Well, Trump took the position that birthright citizenship was unconstitutional, that it could be done away with. And so when he lost a case or two on that issue in lower courts, he made an emergency application to the Supreme Court to hear a case about birthright citizenship and the constitutionality of the 14th Amendment, essentially. or maybe the interpretation of the 14th Amendment is a better way to put it. And so he got a temporary, first he had a temporary decision on the emergency docket that was kind of in his favor. But those temporary decisions are only temporary. And so they were waiting further adjudication. And that's what the case that happened yesterday or the day before was about. And so that's kind of how he's getting onto the Supreme Court's docket so quickly.
It's perpetual. It's constant.
Well, he's also putting the legal system under enormous strain. So I think that the court has been more willing to take up his cases because the justices, are worried that his unwillingness to listen to the decisions of lower courts is threatening the rule of law in the United States. And so I think that they have opened the door more widely to him because they're more fearful that he will just run roughshod over these judges. I mean, this really started, if you remember, this poor guy Kilmer Abreu. This is one of these guys that the Trump administration, early people that they targeted as a kind of illegal immigrant that they had to deport, and they put him on a plane to El Salvador, and they did so even after a lower court judge, told them that they were not supposed to do so under any circumstance, and they said, "Oh, you issued your decision 10 minutes after we put this guy on the plane." And lo and behold, now he's got this all expense paid trip to El Salvador to a really notorious prison there, and we can't get him out. And the judge was losing his mind because, of course, what he had done was he had spoken his order, his decision in front of the court, and then went back to write it up. And the spoken decision is the law, and then the write up is the formal introduction of that. And they ignored it, and they willfully put this guy on the plane and sent him off. And so that was one of the early kind of test cases. And I think that the Supreme Court stepped in on that case because they were looking at this going, this is a potential disaster. We can't have the government openly in violation of a federal judge's order. And so that, I think, is also playing a role here in terms of the frequency with which the Trump administration has made it to the court.
So we're coming up. We're in April now.
Yeah.
The midterms are coming up in November.
Yeah.
He's already playing the card of, with mail-in ballots. He's going to say that it's rigged or whatever. If he loses, he is going to be impeached, I believe. This may be a stupid question, but I got to ask the question. If he is impeached, what assurance do we have that he actually would leave? Because he seems to run roughshod over whatever it is, as you just explained. But what makes him follow the law? As I know he's the president of the United States, but
he follows the law when the Supreme Court makes decisions, because he has the view that the only trustworthy court is the one that he packed himself. So
which has ruled against him before
more times than almost any other president in history. The only time that Trump has done well with the Supreme Court was last year on the emergency docket, and this year what's happening is a bunch of those cases that he did well on temporarily, he's losing, and he looks like he's going to lose them more. So he is not doing very well, in my view, with the court overall. If he loses the midterm elections, I am not convinced that he will be impeached, even if he deserves it. It would have to be really egregious. There's the stuff about the corruption that's going on, I would think would be enough. Mm-hmm. But the Democrats, I think, have learned their lesson on this. I mean, they impeached him over much more serious stuff in the first term, and it didn't go anywhere, because the problem is that the Democrats are unlikely to win large enough majorities in both the House of Representatives and the Senate because the impeachment is just the indictment, right? Yeah. It's just basically leveling a charge against him. And then he gets tried in the Senate. And I don't think that they're going to have enough people in the Senate to throw him out. And the problem that that Republicans have in the Senate is that none of them are brave enough to stand up and vote against him. Mm-hmm. So I think he would wind up winning another impeachment thing, and it would help him. It would probably help him because he could continue this line that he's just being put upon by these left-wing crazies in the Democratic Party. So I think what's really going to happen is that he's going to wind up getting buried under an avalanche of investigations, congressional investigations. Everything that he does and his administration does is going to be under a microscope, probably in the House, possibly also in the Senate if the Democrats manage to eke out a victory there. And that is going to make his life hell. And it's going to make it very difficult for him to do things domestically that he's been able to get away with so far. But internationally, he's going to have a much freer hand. The president always has a much freer hand in the international stage than the president does on the domestic stage. So, what does that mean? Could that mean more adventures in the Middle East? Yes. It could mean more adventures in Latin America. It could mean more tough talk and bare knuckle brawling with Canada over tariffs. It could mean all sorts of things.
Is a lot of this just theater? Like, is it political theater? It's nuts. Like, are we in the Matrix or something? Do I like? Yeah. I mean, is this like? Does he think this is The Apprentice or some stupid thing? Like this, because it doesn't make it's nonsensical.
I think that his first administration was much more on the theatrical side than this administration. This administration learned a lot from the experience of the first administration, and there are a number of people. I mentioned him actually the second time I was on the show, Russell Voigt, for example, that had real plans for the federal government, and Trump, I think, has real plans. He has some weaknesses in terms of executing them. He doesn't always have the greatest attention span, for example.
Yeah.
When things get tough, he kind of loses interest.
Taco.
Yeah. He's irresolute, as you just point out, right? So, those things interfere with that. But I think that in this administration, the second administration, he's got his head down as much as he can possibly do that, and is wanting to get things done. He's thinking about his legacy. He's thinking about changing the U.S. In kind of permanent ways. I don't think he's going to wind up being successful, but he is causing enough problems that it's not going to be easy for the U.S. to get back to exactly where it was before that. And in some cases, those will be good changes that come out in the long run. Like, I would love, for example, to see, my own personal wish list is that I would love the next president, whoever that person is, to say, the presidency in the United States has gotten too strong. It's time that, and the Trump administration was abject lesson in that. It's time to put some serious restrictions on what the president can do. I mean, for example, the Insurrection Act in the United States basically gives the president the right to mobilize the military and occupy U.S. cities, on the thinnest of reasons. That's bananas. There needs to be more checks than that. Mm-hmm. There have to be other places where the balance of power between the executive and the legislature are changed, and I'm hoping that some of those things will happen as a result of the experience of this particular administration. But putting this egg back together is not going to be that simple.
In wrapping things up, what do you think, and this is an open-end question, what do you think is one thing that we're overlooking, that the public is missing, aside from all of the other shit that's going on? Because there's so many things going on, but what is the one thing that we're overlooking that we should be paying attention to? Because you say that, like, you made a comment that Trump has a very short attention span. Well, he sure as hell imparts that on everyone, because it's just we don't know what's going. But what's the one thing that you think that we're overlooking, that we're not paying attention to?
I guess I would say, and I'm going to bring this back a little bit to international politics, which is really my expertise. But I would say that there's too much inattention to the unintended consequences of things that the president does. So we're often presented with, well, Trump has done X, and so you can then draw a straight line between what he's done and what the consequences will be. And I'm skeptical that that is the right way to think about what's happening. And let's just go back to something we talked about a little bit earlier, just in this particular program. What's going on with NATO? I actually think that NATO is going to be strengthened by what's happening with Trump's attacks on it, rather than ultimately weakened, because the Europeans and Canada are going to be actually more reasonable and capable partners, because I think that they're looking at this going, oh, we can't just rely on Uncle Sugar to continue to pay the bill here for all the things that we're doing. Let me give you a quick example. Drill, baby, drill. Well, then you go and you attack Iran. You close off the Strait of Hormuz, and all of a sudden, people in Bangladesh and Pakistan and South Korea don't have the power that they need to run their homes, to do all the things that they're doing. So is he making the world an easier, better place for petroleum, or is he making the world a better place for renewable energy sources like solar power and things like that? Every time the price of gasoline goes up in our part of the world, electric vehicles start to look like they are more attractive. Solar panels, are going to look more attractive in places like Bangladesh and Pakistan, because once the Americans can't blot the sun out, as far as we know, with crazy military adventures. Yeah. So I do think that we have to be attentive to the possibility that Trump's actions wind up being ironic. They wind up producing things that he didn't intend or want. Maybe they're things that we didn't want or hope for, but they're not. We're not going to get a straight line from what he's doing to the world that we're going to be living in 5 to 10 years.
Well, Dr. Aaron Hoffman, thank you for coming. You wrapped that up in a positive frame. You really did. You actually, it made me feel a little bit better. Like you did. Because that's what I was looking for. That's why I bring you on. I need someone to make me feel a little bit better, because it's really easy to get sucked down that vortex, that hole of shit. And thank you. This won't be the last time. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you, Matt.
Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to coming back again. The last thing I said on this show was that Donald Trump was a jobs program for political scientists, and my presence here again is, I think, more evidence of that. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
You may be asking yourself, what's any of this got to do with me? Absolutely nothing. Until next time.